Hey guys, it's Kaylie from Sirek Photography, and I am here today to touch on some questions that as a wedding photographer I get asked a lot, and I thought it'd be good just to make a video and clear some of those things up in case you are wondering any of the same things. I think one of the biggest things to having a more photogenic wedding is having confidence. And a good way to have confidence is to not have questions. So I'm going to go over some common questions that I get asked as a wedding photographer, and hopefully it'll clear up some of the questions you may have. First, I hear this all the time. We're so terrible in front of the camera. Help! What can we do? My best advice is to meet up with your wedding photographer before your wedding day. That way they get a lot more comfortable in front of my camera and with me behind the camera. And I think that you're gonna be surprised at how fun it actually is and how natural you can actually be and still get great photographs. I think a lot of people are worried about hitting the right pose or getting the good side. And those are things that I think if you get in front of a camera and kind of get used to it, you're gonna see that those things don't matter as much as you think. This question's on everyone's mind. Why are wedding photographers so freaking expensive? Now, this could probably be a whole video in and of itself, but just a quick breakdown. Being a photographer is really expensive. The equipment is all really expensive. The applications you use on your computer are really expensive. Your computer is expensive. There's a lot of expenses that go into this career. And on top of that, photography is an art. As a photographer, I view myself as an artist, and the work that I give you, no one else can give you. So you're hiring the photographer for their style, for their eye, for their expertise, and comes with a price. What are the pros and cons to hiring a second photographer at your wedding? I give my clients the option to hire a second photographer or not. I feel completely comfortable shooting a wedding by myself, as I know a lot of other photographers do. However, some people really do want that second photographer just because it does give you a second perspective on the day. For instance, it's really important to some brides to get a great photo of their groom, looking at them coming down the aisle, and also get a great photo of them walking down the aisle. And the best way to ensure that you can get those both shots, because a lot of times they're happening at the same exact time, is to have two photographers. Like I said, it's not necessary, and just talk to your wedding photographer about if they always include a second photographer or not. I would say it's not, you don't need to have it, but it does help to get some extra shots and have a second pair of eyes on the day. We love the photographer we hired. Do we also need a videographer? This is a great question. Definitely you need a photographer for your day, so if you already have that or you know you're gonna do that, great. Videographer, a lot of people skip that because it's seen as an extra expense, which it is, and can oftentimes be really pricey, especially for a really good quality one. So my recommendation would be to have at least some sort of video. If you can afford it, yes, hire a videographer. Hire the one that you want, because you're not going to regret it at all. The day goes by so fast, it's going to be so hard to remember anything. Like, you're gonna wake up, be all excited it's your wedding day, and before you know it, you're gonna be leaving the reception. Like, it just goes by so fast. So having video is really, really awesome if you can afford it. Other more affordable options, maybe find a student or someone just starting out who has lower prices. Or what I did at my own wedding is I rented those little GoPros and I handed them out to guests, and I let my guests video the day. And I also had a good friend of mine who's a photographer use her camera that had video on it to also get some footage of the day. The thing about that is my wedding was 2 years ago and I have yet to edit the footage together. So I have it, but I don't have an actual video that I can watch. So that's where hiring someone would really come in handy. So yes, if you can swing it, I would definitely recommend hiring a videographer. How far in advance do I need to book my photographer? This totally depends on who you're hiring, but if your wedding is going to be in the summer months, it would Strongly recommend a year to 6 months in advance if you can. My engagement was only 6 months and I was able to find someone, so I would say, I mean, that's kind of cutting it close. A lot of people are booked out really far, so I don't know, just kind of put some feelers out there and find out. I would say if you can, the earlier the better. Another thing, kind of behind the scenes that you might not know, is a lot of times yearly photographers will up their prices. So say you book your wedding now and get locked in at this rate, it might be cheaper than if you waited 6 months and booked them then. They might have already raised their prices. So that's just another behind the scenes thought to consider. Should I give my photographer a shot list for the wedding day? This is something you need to talk to your photographer about. I always tell my brides, you can definitely give me a shot list if there are things that are important to you. However, you don't need to give me a list that says like, I want a picture of my mom buttoning up my dress and my dress hanging and the groom looking at me. Like, I'm gonna get those photos. So what I like to say is if there's anything specific that you want that I wouldn't know about otherwise, for instance, if your necklace that you're going to be wearing is handed down from your great-grandmother, you want to be sure to get a really great shot of that, and I might not have known that otherwise if you didn't let me know. So if there's any sort of detail or any sort of, you know, special person that's going to be at your wedding, be sure to tell your photographer so that they know to keep their eye out for things like that. I have an uncle who's a photographer. Can he also take photos at my wedding? I have run into this before. Check with your photographer. In their contract, they probably have something about whether or not you can have other people photographing. I would say as long as that other person stays out of the way, basically, and isn't using the photos for their own professional work. If you have someone who has a nice big camera, they're more than welcome to take photos, but as long as they don't stand in the way, because a lot of times photographers run into this where other guests think they're a photographer. You know, maybe they're like an extreme hobbyist photographer and they stand in front of the real actual photographer that you've hired, and you kind of get the back of their head in every photo. So you don't want that. So definitely give your photographer a heads up if you know of someone in your family or have a friend like this, so that they can kind of watch out for them and maybe speak with them beforehand just to make sure that they don't run into each other and cause any problems throughout the day. Can you Photoshop 10 pounds off my face? I get this question so much on photo shoots. It's like, oh, can you just Photoshop that? Oh, can you just Photoshop that? And I understand how we're all, especially as women, so insecure when you're in front of a camera. It's like, it just magnifies everything that you're self-conscious about. And the short answer is yeah, I can, or I can touch it up. Like if you have a smudge of chocolate all over your face, I'm gonna take care of that, or you know, maybe some blemishes on your face or whatever, but your pictures are gonna look how you look. So there's no need to be self-conscious. You are you. You don't need anyone to Photoshop you. You're gonna be captured the way that you are, and it's going to be beautiful and amazing. You're gonna look great. Don't worry about it. Should we do a first look? Yes! I would very strongly recommend doing a first look. There are several reasons. One, it's gonna make you a lot more comfortable, a lot less stress and pressure. You're gonna be able to have more photos of just you two. If it's a traditional thing for you, I would recommend researching what the actual tradition is. If you didn't know, there was no first look traditionally because they didn't want the groom to see the woman in the prearranged marriage and think that she was ugly and run away and not go through with the wedding. So that is what the tradition is. I don't think that's necessarily something you need to uphold because you're not ugly and you've seen each other already, so it's gonna be fine. I would say probably like 99% of the time your photographer is gonna be all for a first look. Should we plan on feeding our photographer or photographers at the reception? This is something that may also be in your photographer's contract, but generally I would say yes. They are hired, they are working for you, but they've been on their feet all day long and they need to eat. You don't want the first dance to come and your photographer is MIA because they're passed out on the floor or in the back room because they haven't eaten anything all day. Yes, try and get them dinner. That way they don't die. Where do you recommend printing photos and or a guest book? I love printing photos, and I think it is an awesome thing to do at your wedding, printing your engagement photos or photos you've taken together over the years or months and displaying them at your reception. I think that that makes things really personal and guests enjoy seeing that. My recommendations for a printer, I would say if you want quality, not like Walmart or Walgreens. I know it's really tempting because it's fast and cheap, but it does compromise quality. So I would say Artifact Uprising is one of my top, especially for a book, for guests to sign. If you're looking for an online printer, I would recommend Nation's Photo Lab. Also, talk to your photographer about looking for someone local. That is what I have. I hope I've answered some of your questions or given you some things to think about. If you have any more questions, or if I didn't answer all of your questions, leave a comment below and I will answer back. Yep, I think that's it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.